So they're upset, Charles. They didn't really like it.
Well, look, I didn't like it either, which is a separate question from whether it should have happened. As I say, I thought that CNN played its part in the dog and pony show pretty badly, and I don't want Donald Trump to be the nominee. And Donald Trump is a habitual liar, and much of what he said was untrue, and he often refuses to answer questions, as you noted, that really are the whole point of a presidential candidate's being in the fray in the first place. So I didn't like it. What I find so annoying, though, here, Megyn, is the double standard, the Calvin ball that is played by media outlets such as CNN and by many people in the press more generally. The excuse, and it was an excuse, that CNN gave for why it held this is that Donald Trump is a presidential candidate and that therefore he's newsworthy. Now, that is, of course, true. He is a presidential candidate and he is newsworthy. But in so many other circumstances, you would hear complaints about platforming. We'd be told that disinformation is the higher value. The press seems to pick and choose which one of those approaches it wants to take on the fly. So you end up with, when the press wants to cover a story, it says, well, look, this is obviously newsworthy. All we're doing is putting a camera in the face of somebody who, by dint of his position, is worth our attention. And when the press doesn't want to cover a story, it says, well, we shouldn't platform this, or this is hateful, or this is disinformation, or what you will. And the result is pretty cynical. The result is biased. I think CNN wanted to host this town hall with Donald Trump because he's good for ratings and because many of the people at the network would like him to be the nominee again. I'm not saying those people agree with him necessarily. I'm not even saying they think he's good for the country necessarily, but they may well think that he's good for CNN. And as a result, all of the so-called sort of realist approach or journalistic ethics that we've heard so much about over the last 6 years, all of the complaints that we heard there from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Keith Olbermann and Van Jones immediately become irrelevant, and CNN does whatever it wants.
Yeah, they definitely would like to see him to be the nominee because the Democrats are convinced he's the most beatable Republican candidate. So it's a win-win for them. They get more ratings because he is a ratings machine. 3.1 million isn't as much as he might have gotten on an average night all those years ago in 2016, but it's amazing for CNN. It's 10x what they normally get. And, it advances him toward a little closer towards the nomination, which they like too. That's a little bit longer of covering him and potentially a Democratic win. But they seem genuinely confused about who their audience is. Right now, their audience is all liberals. I mean, Republicans don't watch CNN. They just don't. They were driven away during the last 8 years once they went hard partisan. And I guess it's a build back process, but I'm not sure you begin that by dropping this kind of a bomb on your left-wing audience of Donald Trump, who with an anchor who can't control him at all in a format that wasn't built to.
Well, yes, and that's why this was so odd to watch, and it was so odd this morning to read at CNN's website. That's why you have this really strange sight of CNN putting its time and advertising budget behind this event, making a big deal of its decision, and then cutting to a whole bunch of its employees who are savaging the network for having done it in the first place.
Yes,
cutting
it was
to
so
Oliver
awkward.
Darcy saying this is not what CNN is. This was a disgrace. I mean, I don't think it's necessarily wrong for institutions, be they CNN or the New York Times or whatever, to have an ombudsman on staff, maybe one person who has some latitude to criticize the network. But this was really either or. I mean, you had the event, which was defended, and then you had all of the other people in CNN's orbit savaging CNN, saying it had been destructive to American democracy and should never have taken that decision in the first place. And that's because of what you're describing, which is this schizophrenia between wanting to attract a new audience, but actually not having that audience yet.
and not having anybody on board within CNN who actually understands real live Republicans. They did, to their credit, put on Byron Donalds, Republican from Florida, your home state, on the CNN panel. And there were like 8 or 9 others, and then Congressman Donalds. And man, he unleashed a can on them. It was actually quite beautiful to behold because it was so nice just to hear somebody say what people actually cared about and give a different take on it. And they just looked at him like he was an alien. That nobody there could even, you could tell it was all they could do to stomach his opinions. I had my team cut just a little bit of him defending Trump. It was the sole voice anywhere on the panel doing so. Here's a little bit of Byron Donalds in SOT 10.
Town halls are for the voters, not for the press, not for the person who's the moderator. Caitlin spent more time interjecting her own viewpoints or her own views on the situation.
Excuse me, those are actually facts.
Now, are you guys not going to interject your views on here? Do I get a chance to speak now? He did not say he was just going to give over Ukraine the way you intimate, Van. He did not say that.
He didn't say
what he said
he did not say that he would stand for a victory.
What he said is that he would actually look for a solution to end it quickly. He put 24 hours on it, but let's be very clear. What Joe Biden has done has been a disaster. We spent 22, 23 minutes talking about January 6th. We could have been talking about a whole lot of other issues. What was said in this town hall about National Guard troops that were authorized by Caitlin was wrong. I'm on the Oversight Committee. I was in 2 hearings on January 6th. It was testified in oversight that Donald Trump authorized National Guard troops on January 4.
You could, Charles, they were like, what is it and why is it saying all the defensive things about Donald Trump?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in 2 minds on some of those criticisms. I think he's absolutely right when he says that this should have been for the voters, not for the network. And that was the main problem with last night's spectacle. The other one being that CNN forgot how entertaining Donald Trump is. I don't say that as a compliment in every circumstance. Mm-hmm. I say as a fact. He is just a wildly entertaining person. He's extremely talented in that regard, and he always has been. One thing I slightly disagree with Byron Donalds on, and I think you to some extent in your opening remarks, yes, CNN focused too much on the 2020 election and on January 6th. But that is also a criticism that we can level at Donald Trump. I mean, if you look through Donald Trump's press releases and his behavior on Truth Social, he is far, far more obsessed with the 2020 election and with January 6th than Republican primary voters are. So we're going to hit CNN for it, which we should, and 20 minutes is absurd. We should also point that out about Trump. I mean, this is a big distinction between Trump and every other Republican candidate, is that he really is still very interested in relitigating 2020 and January 6th, and the rest of them aren't. So it is going to come up, but yeah, perhaps not in that proportion.
Mm-hmm. Of course, they opened the debate with a question about it from a GOP voter. I mean, the people in the town hall were GOP voters. But of course, it is the network that selects what questions will be fronted and which ones do not. I want to tell you about the amazing extreme altitude wines from the Bonner Private Wine Partnership. These flavors go great with any hearty meal and meat you're going to serve. They are unlike any wine you've ever tasted. Blackberry, leather, smoke, and little dark cherry. The wines are almost impossible to get on your own. The producers deep in the Andes Mountains make limited quantities. I have a great offer for you right now. If you visit bonnerprivatewines.com/MKS, that's BONNER privatewines.com/MKS, you will not only get wine for over 50% off plus free shipping, you'll also get a bonus bottle of small batch limited production wine from their exclusive wine cellar. That's 4 bottles for the price of 3. It's a deal that's hard to turn down if you are a wine lover like I am. They've cut out the middleman, so you're not going to pay a big markup. Just visit Bonner, BONNER, privatewines.com/MKS to claim your bonus bottle and become a part of America's most unique wine club. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.